We begin today's recording by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we are on. I am on Burrawang land. Where are you, Breezer?
I am on the land of the Djajarurrung people.
We pay our respects to the elders past and present and extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who are tuning in today.
And wherever you're listening to the potty today, make sure you know whose land you're on. Join us each week for some booze-free banter about life without booze.
If you're entertaining cutting back your booze by a day, a week, a month, or for the rest of your life, we would love for you to tune in.
Buckle up and come along for a ride that may just change your life. If any of today's conversations have been triggering, please reach out to your local support centre in Australia. That is Lifeline 131114. All right, we cracking a bottle, Meso.
We are cracking a bottle. Cracking.
What are you cracking today, Meso?
Cracking the Kakadu Plum. The rosé from Altina, our favourite. Whoop.
Our favourite. Well, I'm going to one-up you with a pepperberry Shiraz. As you know, I like a bit of a non-alc red during the colder months. So Altina have delivered the goods once again, and mighty good drop.
Oh, top drop.
I'm wondering what it'd be like warmed up. You know, you can warm the Sanskria up. I'm wondering what this will be like.
Yeah.
Anyway, might give it a whirl.
Pop it in your saucepan.
Can I just read the little blurb that's got on the bottle for you?
Rip into it. Yep.
Righto. The perfect blend of premium de-alcoholized Shiraz and native Australian pepperberry, bursting with juicy red fruits and a hint of dark chocolate. Tickety boom. That was me. A dry, smooth finish with notes of vanilla and layered lingering spice.
Oh,
spice up your life, peeps.
Spice up your life. And next time they bring out their next product, they can put Tickety Boom on their label. Brought to you by Breezer. The Breezer bottle.
But Altina have generously given our listeners a 15% discount on their entire range. What is the discount code, Meso?
It's BFB15 when you go to www.altina.drinks.com.
Fantastic. We love you, Altina. Thank you so much for coming on board for season 3.
Yummy, yummy. Get amongst it. We love you.
We love you. Meso. Hang on.
No. Carry on.
Carry on. Meso.
Reza.
Wowee. Another cracking guest. We are so lucky, aren't we?
Oh, my God. Guest galore. Another 10 out of 10.
Oh, absolutely. We've just been bantering with Justine Whitchurch. She came to us live from the Gold Coast. Now, let me just read her CV. Stand by. She is a sobriety. Hang on. I'll just call out. She's been sober for 9 years, almost 10 years, which is incredible. She's just a picture of health, isn't she, Meso?
Oh, my God. Beaming.
Beaming.
Yep.
So check it, double check it. She's a sobriety speaker, a fitness coach, an author of the book Sobriety Delivered Everything Alcohol Promised, #best title ever. She writes for Mamma Mia and has is a panelist on Channel 9's Helping Hands, butchered that one.
It's okay.
Helping Hands, it's got something else to the title, Helping Hands TV. There you go. She's all over the place in terms of spreading a message about life without booze. She's got a story to tell.
A hell of a story.
But she's owned, and we say this, she's owning her story, isn't she, Meso?
Yes. From the words of Mojo Crow, she absolutely is. And I really love those keywords at the end about finding joy, feeling joy.
Yeah.
And there's her life is purposeful, and it's also giving people hope. Love that. And
love that.
Oh, she really is. It's an incredible story, and you wait to see what she's doing next. You'll hear that at the end of the podcast.
Yeah, she's got a big year coming up, hasn't she?
Hasn't she? We absolutely loved this chat.
Mike, can I just say what my favourite part was? Well, there's a lot of favourite parts, but I actually loved towards the end that she gave our listeners some tips on if they're looking at, changing their relationship with alcohol. So you've come to the right place, peeps, if you're the first time listening. But I think she gave some really useful and achievable tips for people who are perhaps starting out on, improving their relationship with booze or looking to cut it out completely.
Yep. And if you just want to go on a little deep dive, go into YouTube and look up Eclipse Look of Love. You'll find little Justine as a 15-year-old. She was signed with Sony and traveled with Kylie Minogue. Just a little sidestep.
Yeah, what dynamite. What dynamite.
Yeah. She's an absolute cracker, and we just thank her so much for her time today.
Yeah, this is a brilliant chat, peeps.
Yeah.
We really enjoyed it. Let's get amongst it. What do you reckon?
Let's do it.
Bring her in.
A big, warm, booze-free buddies welcome to Justine Whitchurch. Welcome to the podcast, Justine.
Hi, guys. Lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Our pleasure.
Yeah. You know how the potty rolls, Juzzy? So we're throwing straight in the deep end with either a shame story or a confession session. Hit it.
And shame stories, there are so many of them, it's not funny, but probably I won't go to my lowest point because I know you probably will ask me about that at some point in time, but shame stories, I know I definitely had one incident where I woke up one morning and my hand was like a balloon and I was in so much pain. It was out of control. Anyway, I went to the doctor and went and had scans and everything. I had like 5 fractures in my hand. And it was first thing in the morning. I had no idea. The first thing he said to me is, how did you do it? And I've gone, it was like a weeknight. I think I made up some story that I'd actually fallen into a wall for, I can't even remember what I said. But I know that I'd got up, more than likely I got up in the middle of the night, cut as a snake and fallen over and literally full body weight or whatever on my hand. And I ended up, I don't know, it went on for like 6 months of rehab. I was supposed to have surgery. I put it off because I was so unwell. But yeah, I made up some elaborate story as to what had actually happened. And literally it was just probably going to the bloody toilet in the middle of the night and I've fallen on my hand and fractured it in 5 places.
Did a good job of it.
That was a good one. But there are so many. I'll fill up your whole podcast with loads of those. There's some that I'll probably keep to myself.
Oh, we hear you. We hear
you. Yeah.
So safe to say the hand modelling career came to a stop that night.
Well, my knuckle actually went right up the top of my hand and it's been years, 10 years now, but it's only just, it started to regress back to where it was supposed to go. So it did, hand modelling was completely out of the question.
Cross that off the list.
Off the list, yeah.
Oh, poor pet.
Poor pet.
Yeah.
How is it now? Does it give you much grief now?
No, it's completely fine. It's completely fine. Yep.
Oh, trying to put those pieces together. Yeah, how they bounce around.
I know. And that was actually my first broken bone ever. So, we did a good job.
And don't remember it weekday getting real Larry in the lab.
Yeah, that's for sure.
All right. Thanks for sharing that, Juzzy. So we're on to reflection section. So tell us 3 words to describe yourself on the booze and 3 words to describe yourself off the booze.
Okay. So on the booze, there was definitely depressed. And, that would have definitely been a combination of depression beforehand, but alcohol being a depressant, just making it that much worse. Anxious, totally anxious all the time. And, the alcohol fed the anxiety fed the alcohol. But I think the one that probably sticks most and my most, I guess, memory that reminds me of why I don't want to go back there is that I was lifeless, just completely lifeless.
Yeah.
So it was, I was hollow. You only had to look in my eyes. There was nothing there. I was just, there was no joy. There was no motivation. There was, and when I was drinking, there was not a lot of emotion because that's what I was trying to run away from. So yeah, just lifeless, just, there was a vacant. I always say that too. I've thrown you another one.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah,
but I know they're heavy and really insightful. Mm. Yeah.
It robbed me of life.
Gosh, people are going to get so much out of that. I think people really underestimate the what's the word I'm looking for? The correlation between anxiety and alcohol. They don't realise. I think it's helping and it's not. But I really love the way that you framed that the anxiety fed the alcohol.
Fed the
anxiety.
Yeah.
Like I hadn't heard that before. That's brilliant.
Yeah, it just becomes a vicious cycle. I mean, and, there's most of us that have underlying mental health conditions, and, I'm sure we'll delve into that, but it's, it numbs you. But, from a physiological point of view, it actually creates anxiety. That's science, so it's shit.
Yeah.
But people don't know that. It's not written on the side of the bottle.
No. Will increase anxiety.
That's it. You wouldn't touch it, would you?
No.
All those warnings.
And hollow.
Yeah.
That's a biggie.
Yeah, I've spoken about that, and it's interesting because I look back on photographs of myself at that time, and there's actually not a lot, because I think I was fairly iPhone cameras weren't, here, there, and everywhere at probably my lowest times.
Thank God.
Yeah, thank God. But I didn't like being, remotely in front of a camera anyway. But when I look at the photos and the ones that upset me the most are the ones when I see myself with my kids, and I'm sitting there with my kids and I can still look in my eyes, and I know it's amazing what pictures do. They can take you back, and exactly how you felt. Yeah. And it was just like, I just didn't, there was nothing there.
Wow. I'm sure so many people can relate. I certainly can.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some light and fluffy stuff now.
Yeah.
How are we now?
Look, I mean, I think, I will say the first one is resilient, and I'm not infallible, but, when you regrow, I'll call regrow or reconnect with your own natural coping mechanisms. Your resilience is threefold compared to when you were drinking. And I always say this: we think that alcohol helps us survive, and sometimes for a period of time it might do, but it just strips away those natural coping mechanisms, and then opening the car door the wrong way becomes bigger than Ben-Hur, because we just don't have this ability to cope. So resilient, and after resilience, I think I became very determined. And that's something that I was when I was younger. So that's not a reconnection with my younger self, because I was quite very ambitious, and definitely became determined in every area of my life. But the biggest one, and I guess it's almost the polar opposite of what we spoke about with what I was like when I was drinking, and it's present. Everything I do is real, raw, here, now, authentic. I can't escape it. And you know what? I don't want to escape it anymore, because it's that is life. That is living. And being present allows me to enjoy, the height of all the emotions, but with the coping mechanisms, be able to cope with it.
It's so I love that. And but hearing that, I can so relate to what a gift to be present in your life. Yep. If someone had told me that that's what sobriety brings, I'd be like, whatever. Like, I'm fine. Like, because until you step outside and experience that clarity and feeling present, you look back and go, shit, that's a huge shift.
But isn't it amazing, though, how what we're trying to do, though, is actually escape being present. But that's because we're not dealing with life as we should be, with those coping mechanisms, with the confidence, with the resilience. And, life's not linear. We've just spoken about this off air. Things will go up, down, all around. And, I'm going through some pretty heavy stuff at the moment. But I think back to what I would have been like doing that previously, and there's no way, mate, I would have been 10 bottles under every night, because it's like, oh my God, how could I do this? Now I'm like, okay, this is hard, but I can do this.
And every time there's growth on the other side of that discomfort.
And I think I think that's the evidence. We need the evidence that's what actually happens.
You're so right. I had a little cry yesterday. It had been a little while since I had a little cry to a friend yesterday. And during that little cry, he said to me, I can hear, and I was saying, I know these tears I'm not going to sit in this pain for long. I actually look forward to coming through the other side of it, because every time I feel this pain and those tears, the salt water and those tears heals the wounds, I'm growing from this, and I'll be more resilient, and I'll pop out the other side, and it'll propel me forward. And he said, I can hear it in your voice. I can hear the tenor in your voice that is true. Like, that every time I have it bottom out, I'm flip up and propel forward. Yeah, I do. Whereas when I was drinking, it was just a mess. It was just on a cycle. It wasn't getting that same, repeating the same thing, expecting different outcome is the definition of insanity. It was just a constant just blob of mess, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I love the way you frame that.
No, it is. And I think there's, see what you're doing is you're anticipating already that you know that you're going to be okay and that you're actually going to get an added bonus out of it.
Yeah. It's kind of like having a fight and looking forward to the makeup sex.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't thought of it that way, but yeah, absolutely. No, it is very, very true. But I think you need to, you need a couple of, we would talk about evidence, and, a lot of my therapy that I did, especially in rehab is, where is the evidence that? And when you've got positive evidence that things do actually work out, you can draw on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it brings us that gift.
It does. So many gifts. Christmas Day, every day.
With a few ups and downs along the way.
Yeah.
But that's life, isn't it? I was having this conversation with someone last week, and we're just saying life is messy. Full stop.
It's supposed to be, though. It's supposed to be. And I think, for whatever reason, and, I'm not going to discount mental health stuff, because for me there's always been underlying mental health conditions. But it is, we're supposed to feel all of these things. It's supposed to be high, low, and we're just so quick to want to escape it. And, if I look at the varying degrees of drinking, we talk a lot about grey area drinking now. So you've got people that, weren't near-death alcoholics like myself, where, there was clearly some pretty severe rock bottoms. But, the mummy wine culture, it's all escapism. It's all escapism, and it's condoned escapism. And it's why are we running away?
And it's so normalised.
It is. Well, it's not just, I'll say this, I talk about this all the time on my press. It's not just accepted, it's expected. Yeah. And it's, it's undoing an entire generation of mothers.
Boom. Yeah.
And children. Flow-on effect.
Children. Absolutely. Yeah. 100%. 100%. So, Juzzy, let's talk about your drinking. Paint us a picture. Paint us a picture. Take us on a journey.
Well, if I go from the very, very beginning, like any normal teenager, I probably, I drank at my first party when I was maybe 15, just a little bit of liquid courage. It wasn't definitely, there was no medicating. It was a bit of fun. But if I go back to sort of my baseline mental health stuff, I've always suffered from anxiety but obsessive compulsive disorder, not diagnosed until very much later in life. But I was that kid that had the ruminating thoughts and the double checking, the over checking kind of thing. So it was quite general to begin with. And then I remember the first time that I didn't even recognise this as medicating, but the first time I used alcohol to medicate was a boyfriend. Thank you, men. No, that's not true. That's not true. But it was this boyfriend that, so I would have been 19 at the time. It had been on and off, on and off. I thought he was the absolute love of my life. And I was at a family friend's house sitting, and he called on the landline back then, that to say, look, we can't keep doing this. It's we have to end this kind of thing. It was already like 11 o'clock at night. And I remember getting off the phone, going straight to the fridge, grabbing a couple of stubbies of beer because I had already been in bed, hopped back in bed because I was just beside myself, and drank until I was calm enough to sleep. And I would say now, I know that through all my own therapy and rehab, that was the first time I used alcohol to medicate. So I learnt at that point that's what I could do to calm my nerves, calm my thoughts, escape. But then it was kind of on and off. I was never a massive party drinker. That wasn't me. I was much more of a medicator, so I would drink at home. So fast forward a few years, 20s, I got married, I had two small children, I ended up getting divorced, and it was a very, very, very messy not a very nice time. Wasn't a great relationship. And towards the end of that, I was well and truly medicating. So I was hiding my alcohol, putting at that point in time my vodka in shampoo bottles in the bathroom so that I could have a top up if I needed it. I was, numbing the anxiety, the pain, all of that type of thing. And then I would go the next couple of years. It was really weird. It wasn't linear. It went up, down, and all around. And then it got to I got remarried, and he doesn't mind me saying, both openly, we were both big drinkers. So I was enabled then. It's like, great, now I can actually drink at home and
drinking
no one's going to go, correct. And I'll have do you want another bottle? Of course, you want another bottle? I'll have another bottle. That's fine. Then I've got the ones hidden in the cupboard as well that I can have more out of if that's not quite enough and it looks like I've had too much at the table. But, there was a lot of custody issues with my kids, and my daughter was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. You know what? It's actually just life stuff that happened that alcohol had already got a hold of me. So I ended up then drinking. My consumption increased dramatically. And in the last couple of years, but in particular the last 12 months, I was almost a 24/7 drinker. So I was, when I didn't have to show up to do something, I was drinking. So, weekends, if I didn't have the kids or, it was at a time when I could relax a little bit, I would, have a glass of wine if no one was home first thing in the morning, especially if I was hungover from the night before. But in the end, it got extremely severe. And I was living in Melbourne at the time. My family said, they're still back on the Gold Coast. We need you up here, because they recognised that things were getting pretty bad. And at the time, even with my husband, things weren't great there. So I flew back up to Queensland with the kids, and essentially they took over full care of my children. And at that point in time, my liver was showing signs of cirrhosis. My GGT was over 2,500, which should be under 42. I was about 46 kilograms. I was black and blue all over because I had essentially no platelets. People don't realise that alcohol really impacts your platelets as well. And I was dying. I was told in one particular incident that I probably had about 3 months if I just continued going. I just couldn't stop. I couldn't stop. I didn't know what to do.
What were you drinking? Like, is it wine?
Everything. Okay. So and I talk about it in my book, whatever was going to numb me out. I did mouthwash when I couldn't get to anything else. I remember before I actually went into rehab in Melbourne, my doctor put me in hospital for a short period of time for rest. It was not a rehab hospital, but he knew I needed rest. I even managed to get my naturopath, because she did those tinctures, they're alcohol based, right? They are alcohol based. I managed to get her to, thinking she's helping me, bring me in a couple of big bottles of this calming thing that she used to give me. And she brought them in, and I remember, because I wasn't allowed it, I didn't sneak alcohol in, but they were giving me other meds at the time anyway, having massive swigs of that, which is just revolting, and like trying to hold it down not to vomit, but knowing that I would at least get a little bit of calm.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was God, it was wine, wine to be social, vodka when I wanted to be undetected. My dad's medicine, my dad, it was like medicine. My dad's liquor cabinet, a little bit of out of each bottle so no one knew what was going on.
Yep.
It was anything that gave me that calm.
Gosh.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty.
No, yeah, it's a lot. Thanks.
But it wasn't, it wasn't like that to begin with. This is what I always say to people. It sneaks up on you. It progressed, it's a sneaky bastard.
Yeah, really grips you. Gosh, thanks for sharing that. The shampoo, the vodka and the shampoo. I haven't heard that one before, but
it probably wasn't just in that too. If I could find somewhere else, depending on where I was, I would put it in anything else that could be undetected.
So you were constantly thinking about where you needed it throughout the day, like what do we say? Piss poor preparations leads to piss poor performance. You're really prepping for your day ahead. Yeah,
my life
medicine. It's interesting. You called your dad's liquor cabinet medicine.
I know. How's that? Yeah, exactly. Right. Prepping for the day. I lived my life in the last couple of years, but particularly the last 12 months, around my alcohol consumption. It wasn't the other way around.
Were you high functioning then, Juzzy? Like, would you consider a high functioning?
High functioning until probably 6 months beforehand. Yeah, I reckon we petered out in the last 12 months. I had to stop working about, maybe 6 or 7 months before I went into rehab.
Yeah.
Because I was also drinking I would drink on the job. If I really needed to. I was in a training and development role, and I know that there was times when not drinking while I'm there, but if I needed to beforehand, I would have half a glass of wine or something, completely and utterly bloody inappropriate. Yeah, not good.
When you're telling these stories about these sneaking alcohol and thinking about it all the time, I think about how much I used to think about alcohol as well, and times that I drank at work. I never drank flying, but when I was in a cafe, I remember pouring alcohol into coffee cups, cruising around, just having a little swig. That was a long time ago. And even in the job that I had, dog walking, because I was my own boss. I'm like, don't have to blow in the bag of walking dogs. It's all right. Have a little, couple of ciders with friends over lunch and just that constantly thinking about alcohol all the time.
It was constant. It was when could I get my next fix? And even when it wasn't at that kind of level of consumption, it was still always in my head. It was like, how quickly can I throw my bag in the door and quickly get a glass of wine?
Yeah.
And I remember in the latter parts when I would pick up, because I was always really, the drinking and driving thing was just not something that, I was always tried to be so bloody careful around that. It was not reckless. But I remember, picking kids up from after school care and knowing after I'd worked, knowing if I went to the bottle shop and I got a bottle before I picked them up from after school care and I had this much before I picked them up because I needed it because I was so anxious, I would be completely under and I'd be fine, but I was still calm.
Yeah. Wow. Was there ever, incredible that calculating everything to the letter. Was there any times through that you went, I've got a problem here?
Yep. Yeah, I did, but I didn't know how to get out. And I thought there was always in the back of my head, I didn't think that I could ever survive life without alcohol. I knew that was definitely, even when I first went into rehab, that was certainly a thought that I carried. But I did, but I just kept thinking I can get this under control myself. If I do this, oh my God, I went to yoga. I went to a kinesiologist. I went to my psychology sessions. I did all of these things that were going to fix me. The elephant in the room was put the bloody drink down. That was it. I had to put the drink down, but I was nowhere near I was not ready to do it. I kept saying to myself, I remember, this is one, I guess, subconscious, unconscious thought. Once you get through this next challenge or this next thing, then you'll pull your intake back.
Yeah, there's always something. The goalpost kept moving.
Yeah.
Totally. You mentioned you had to finish work. What?
Yep.
What was the circumstances around that?
I was so sick. I was physically sick all the time. So I had every flu, every cold. And when you're drinking 24/7, you're not functioning. I was, as I said, I constantly, I didn't want to, I wasn't a drinker driver. I didn't want to do that. So you can't, you can't attend these things if you're not driving. I got school mums. If it was a day and I was at home, I had school mums, bring the kids home for me. I was, how can I say responsible? All I cared about was my children during that time. So I was a responsible, out of control drunk, if that makes sense.
Yep. Yep.
So I didn't, I knew I wasn't physically capable of going to work anymore. And that was at a time then when I decided, my parent family were like, you need to come back up to Queensland.
Mm.
The SOS calls to the school mums, can you pick the kids up? I'm really not feeling well, kind of thing, because, their safety was always my concern. And, that's where that got to.
Yeah. So would you say that was your defining moment? It was when your family got you up to the Gold Coast, or was there many that led you to the point of sobriety? What was the point?
Wasn't ready to even give up when they brought me up here. I'm really honest. I just knew I needed to be looked after. I needed the kids to be looked after, and I needed to get away from where I was in Melbourne, and I needed the support. On a soul level, I knew I needed the support. In my head, there was nothing going on. I was that out of control. The consumption was so large, I was just constantly out of it. So my defining moment was probably up here. There was a couple, they were kind of quite close together. One morning, my mum and dad had taken the kids to school because I got them into a school up here, taking them to school. Then they went, I think they went to Sydney for the weekend. Anyway, I was on 24/7 watch essentially from my family. My sister was coming to pick me up for the day because she knew I was by myself, and I think she just picked me up at 9:00. I'd woken up. I hadn't supposed to have been drinking the night before. I'd absolutely slammed myself. I'd hidden it somewhere, and I had the DTs were just out of control. And somewhere along there, I must have taken my Valium as well. But then she was coming in. I quickly went to the medicine cabinet, we're going to call it, my dad's liquor cabinet, and I took a bit of each of his bottles of they're all spirits, and had like tumbler glass, and I think I drank 2 of those full. They were like blue because it was a combination of so many different, alcohol spirits.
Disgusting spirits.
Yeah. And I drank them straight. And it was 9:00 in the morning. And my sister picked me up and got to her house, and I said, I feel sleepy. I need to go to sleep. I went into her room and she couldn't wake me. So I was non-conscious. And so and kind of a bit non-responsive. So she called the ambulance. And I remember waking up 3/4 of the way there, and they're just saying, what have you taken? What have you taken? And I'm like, what do you mean? What have I taken? I said, nothing. And it was a combination of that level of alcohol and probably a Valium that I'd taken earlier that morning. I got to hospital and my blood alcohol level was 0.38. By about 9:45 or whatever it was.
Because you're so little, obviously, too. Like that, you said you were about 46 kilos.
But I'd have been drinking from the night before. It's a shampoo effect. You're just topping up and topping up and topping up. You just never know, right? And that was hideous. And the come down from that was awful. I ended up staying in there. They kept me in overnight, which was really, really good. But my defining moment, I'll still say, and I don't think I even know that it hit me on an unconscious level, was I was in my new property. Mum and dad were still, so I'd started rehab, and my kids had been taken to school by dad. Dad brought them home to me, so I'd moved out of mum and dad's property and was supposedly living by myself. And he did an assessment. Is she capable of looking after these kids? And it was like 3:00 in the afternoon, and I'd snuck in alcohol that day. And he said, Justine, I can't leave them here with you tonight. And my daughter looked at me, and she was almost 10 at the time, and she had tears in her eyes, and she just said, Mum, I'm scared you're never going to get better. Oh. And they didn't really they were very shielded from my alcohol consumption. They didn't really know I was they saw me drink, but I was they were so protected. Like I'm one of the lucky ones. This doesn't happen. I recognize that. I had a family that was so supportive. So they didn't really even know the depth of it, especially my younger son, until years later when I disclosed it. But I was sick. I slept constantly. I was always sick. I was, when someone else is looking after them because mum's in bed. And I don't know, just from that day, it was like, I can't do this, because the only thing I was living for was them. And I'm not, they deserve so much more. I can't do this to these kids. So, one foot in front of the other. And sometimes it wasn't even conscious. It was unconscious. It just, God, whoever just led the path for me and said, this is what you got to do. I'll help you get there. And it was literally one foot in front of the other. There was no miraculous recovery. It was work, a lot of work.
You can see and feel that pain.
My kids were just, and still are, my absolute everything. And we're talking about living my life around my alcohol consumption. Everything I did in every sober moment of mine, it was making sure that the kids' dinners were going to be ready, so they were fed properly, that the uniforms were done. My whole day was built around making sure that they're going to be okay regardless of what state, so that basically I can switch off when they go to bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Hence why you're so present now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And you miss those moments with your kids. I've always had great relationships with my kids and we're super close, but you're just not completely there.
Yeah.
Now she
there
is.
you are.
Yeah.
And
now they're like, Mum, can you go away?
Like, here I am again.
Yeah,
it's like Isla Fisher. What's the movie? Wedding Crashers.
Yeah.
Isla Fisher's character.
Yeah.
You mentioned rehab a couple of times, Juzzy. Tell us about that.
Okay.
Tell us about the process and.
Yeah, so when I got to Queensland and, my parents got me some really good medical support, got me into psychiatrists, and my GP. And, to begin with, I think everyone thought, I actually don't think they knew that I was as bad as I was. In fact, they'll tell you that. It wasn't until I actually got here that they're like, oh, my God. So under duress, especially after that hospital visit, and I have one more after that too, it was suggested that I go to Crumman Clinic, go into a rehab facility, and they wanted me to go in full residential. I didn't want to go to begin with. I was, bucking and screaming, and I made a deal because I didn't want to leave the kids, and we were living with my mum and dad, so they were well and truly looked after, but I wanted to be there each night. So somehow I wangled a deal. I said, I'll go, but I'm doing the day program because I want to be home every night. So I did that for 8, I think there were 8-week blocks, and I did it twice because I needed to do it twice. And I was literally driven there by my dad every day and picked up so I could not go.
That was for 8 weeks. Every day.
Oh, it was 3 days a week. 3 days a week. Full days, 3 days a week. Yeah. And so the other 2 days I was babysat.
Yeah.
But and I drank through that occasionally. I definitely did. If I had been in residential, I wouldn't have. But I've been asked the question, should I have gone in as a full resident or not, or the way that I did it, did I think that was right? For me, 100% it was the right way to go because as I previously mentioned, my kids were the only thing I was living for. I feel like now, even to this day, if you'd taken that away from me at that period of time, I totally would have not cared whether I lived or died. Wow. So I needed that. For me, there was an integration too. It was go, learn, come back, do straight away, as opposed to go in, be completely isolated from normal life. and then come out and try and, integrate once again. So, I'm very big on different methodologies for recovery. There's no one way to skin a cat. It doesn't have to be AA. It doesn't have to be rehab. It's whatever that works for you, right? And that worked for me.
Wow. And then after rehab, did you come up? So that was 8 weeks, two lots of 8 weeks.
Yeah, 2 months. So that first year, I still drank. So that first year that I came out, but it's really interesting, and even my psychologist and my doctor don't quite know what happened. Once I got through that period, I didn't medicate with alcohol anymore, which was odd. And I'm not quite sure how that happened, but I allowed myself on certain social occasions to have a drink, which never ended up pretty, because I can't have one drink.
Yeah.
I just cannot have one drink. I have one, my body changes, my mind changes, and I instantly know I need more. It's physical for me. It's physical. I need more. So that first year I drank on the odd occasion, and the next year I drank on 3 occasions. It was my 40th birthday, my graduation I changed my life completely, went to a personal training course and, became a health coach kind of thing, and a work Christmas party. And that was the last time I drank, was the work Christmas party. So it took me about 18 months after rehab to completely stop drinking.
And it sounds like you had amazing support, which
huge
from your
amount.
Family. Yeah.
Yeah, huge amount from my family. They did anything and everything they could to keep me sober. And, the exercise became the catalyst for me. It was by far the one thing that built my resilience from zero to hero kind of thing. That correlation between strong physical health and mental health was huge. So, the kids were a lot younger, and my husband at the time was traveling back and forth to Melbourne. He was still working in Melbourne back and forth, and they're like, going to the gym, we'll have the kids. It was just like, do you want us to have the kids? You need to go to the gym. So everything that I could, that was going to increase my capacity to stay sober, they did.
Wow.
I'm super lucky. Super lucky.
But you obviously, don't take away the credit from yourself as well. But, having that support network there is absolutely huge in your recovery.
It is. And that's why now that is why this is my purpose, and because I believe everybody needs that support. I think that sometimes you need somebody else to believe in you before you can believe in yourself. And because, we hear so often, oh, you've got to do it for yourself, change is, it's got to be for yourself. When you're in that state and when you are at that level of addiction, you don't give a shit about yourself. It's so hard to do that if there is nobody else on the other side, championing you on, saying you are capable, because we don't care about ourselves anymore. That's part of the problem. Self-worth goes.
I never looked at it like that, Josie. I've never, but it's spot on. And I suppose, did you find once you were, when in that first year, especially when you drank several times, was there any challenges that you faced socially, or because people seem to not know how bad drinking was? Is that right?
I love that. I love that. I love the question when I say, no, I don't, I don't drink. Oh, how bad did you actually get? You're drinking every night? And I'm like,
every minute.
Yeah, exactly. On the hour, every hour. And when I tell them they're like, that much, I don't think, it's interesting. Maybe those people that knew how bad I got never, ever, ever questioned it, and never, ever put me in a position where I was to be vulnerable. I think, and even I protected myself a lot socially. I will say that. I didn't withdraw completely, but I did what I was told in rehab, and that is pick your times, your moments, and don't think that you're a superwoman because you have had, 30 plus years of using alcohol to socialize, to medicate, to whatever. So I changed how I socialized. I think people struggle the most socially when they're grey area drinkers. because they haven't had the hospital visits that I had where I was told I had 3 months to live. They're like, well, why can't you just say no? Or why don't, I was fortunate not to get that kickback, but maybe that's because I got so low and it was so obvious why I can't drink.
Yeah. It was life or death, wasn't it?
Well, that's it. For me, it was life or death. But I recognise that a lot of people it's not. And that's where, socially, particularly in this country, the narrative has to change. It's actually normal not to drink, just as it is, normal for a lot of people to drink. Yeah. We have to make it easier for people to be able to live a fulfilling social life without feeling like they're going to be ostracised for not having a drink.
Touche.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. And I thought it was interesting before how you were saying when you're in the depths of it, you're like, I can control this. Like, and so many people would feel exactly the same because everybody else around them can be moderators or they can have one drink. Alcohol's available in every street corner and every supermarket. Have a look at during lockdown.
But can they? My question is, can they really?
Can they really? Exactly right. Like Danny Green spoke about during lockdown, gyms were shut. Bottle shops were open. Mm-hmm. And so why can't people who can't stop drinking can't, because it's so addictive and it's available, it grips them. It's absolute madness. And it's just, I think people really underestimate the addiction of it. Like it's such an addictive substance as heroin and sugar.
We're using willpower. We think we can use willpower to fight a physically addictive substance. That's what it is. No amount of willpower can do that. There are so few people that sit on that, scale of drinking of, 0 to 2 where they go, I completely can take it or leave it. Most of us can't. It's just to varying degrees. It's just how much bullshit we want to feed ourselves that we've got a handle on it. Even when I first started personal training, I remember, clients giving them their diets and things like that. And they're like, I said, how often do you drink? And they're like, a couple of times a week, have maybe 2 or 3 times. And they said, the food's going to be the really difficult part for me to control. And I go, okay, whatever. And I know they come back after the first week, they go, the food was easy. I couldn't stop drinking.
Yeah. Wild. Yeah.
And it's, 3 times a week, those few, you're psychologically dependent on it. And, then you'll get to a point with enough consumption where you're physically dependent on it. And that doesn't take too much.
Yeah. Just a little sidestep just reminded me of how ingrained it is in our world. I had to get some antibiotics recently, and both the doctor, when they wrote me the script, and the pharmacist both said, you can't have it with alcohol. Like they really dressed it up that sorry, but you can't have alcohol with this. Yeah. In my head, I'm like, she's sweet. Like I don't drink, all good here, but just incredible that's their line.
But I've remembered, Meso, when I've been on antibiotics before and I've put off starting them because I'm not supposed to drink on them. So I'm like, I'll start it on Monday. I'll start the course on Monday so I can drink on the weekend.
Yeah. How funny. Whereas I just drank through them. I didn't care when I,
Oh, so did I. I
love that though. Madness.
It is. It's crazy. The amount of, I don't want to bang on about media too much and endorsements and all that sort of thing. But, the other day, I know I shared it on my page, and I've seen a few people in the space share it, that Peter Alexander, did you see that Mother's Day window dress?
Yes.
Where it's for Mother's Day, and she has a cask in her hands in the pajamas.
Which I think they had red wine. I think they had glasses of red wine on the pajamas as well. And then she had a cask of red wine. I can't even speak when I see stuff like that. I know. It's also like, and I get my knickers a bit of a twist over, they have, where I live, they have a bloke's biggest lunch, which is around men's health. And it's free piss. It's free piss over lunch. And they're talking about men's health.
Oh,
yeah. Is anyone addressing this with your glasses?
I know. But, there's money. There's money in it. It's like anything else, the latest research that I've been looking at, they're talking about alcohol being like the cigarette in 20 years' time, being like how we view smoking now.
Really?
Yeah. And you know, there is a whole generation. You know, my kids are nothing like I was. Nothing like I was. In fact, I've spoke about this before. You know, and my daughter, we're very big on mental health communication in our house. Very big on it. Yes. We're so open, and we all know that genetically predisposed. My dad's 35 years sober, 36, just gone 36 years sober.
Go, Dad.
Yep. And lots of alcoholism throughout my family. So they know that they've got a genetic predisposition to begin with. That's the bottom line. Then we know that we've got mental health genetic predispositions. And I remember a while ago, my daughter was talking about, she's going to a party, and I said, you know, are you drinking tonight? And she said, no, I'm feeling anxious, so I'm not going to drink. Oh. And I'm like, so, you know, what I've been preaching about not medicating, she knows that the next day she's going to feel even worse, and she knows this is the wrong time to drink because this is not social.
Yeah. Oh, this kid.
You've educated her. You've educated her.
Yeah, and you know what? They're still kids, you know, and I've got an 18-year-old. He was at schoolies last year, and he, you know, he went hard. But we have a base in our house now when we talk about normalising and changing the narrative. So where I don't blow my own trumpet very often at all, because I still believe I've got a lot of work to do to, you know, that's my own demons to make up for the time that I was not who I should have been. I'll get there eventually. But I've changed my kids' perception that you don't have to drink every day at home. Like, we made a rule, even my husband at the time as well, you know, that it was a case of you don't come home from the day and drink. Only time alcohol is consumed in the house is if there are people over, then it goes away. And so they know that they can come home at the end of the day and I'm not cracking a glass of wine or cracking a bottle. It's changed.
That's safe.
I've done that. And that's not to say that they won't, you know, walk their own walk, because they have to, but they know that that doesn't have to be the case.
Yeah. How insightful, and for you to, you know, gift them that as well through your own experience as well. So incredible. I wish I had that insight, particularly the anxiety thing. Like when you were saying about that, your daughter, I pictured myself when I've been anxious, you know, socially awkward and anxious before I go out. It's like, oh, I can't get the drinking quick enough and not even enjoy it, just down the hatch, to take the edge off. And didn't realise how much it was making the situation worse. So well done on creating that for the kids. So tell us, Josie, what's been the highs and lows of sobriety?
I really can't tell you any lows. I'm going to be damn. I thought about this question, and even situations that are not necessarily pleasant, I've been able to pull something positive out of it. The highs are feeling life, feeling joy, feeling emotion, being able to mentally develop, because there's a lot of talk about that at the moment too. If you you know, on social media and around about how alcohol stunts your emotional development from the time that it becomes an issue, and that's why a lot of people, you know, when they stop drinking, all of a sudden have to start dealing with stuff, and that they haven't actually dealt with. They haven't grown. I didn't grow. I didn't develop at all during that time whatsoever. I was stopped where I stopped, essentially. Having a mojo again. I was a pretty driven teenager. I was, you know, in the music industry, was touring with Kylie Minogue when I was 16, traveling all around the world, signed to Sony in my early 20s. I had a you know, a 90s pop star. I just had this zest for life. And then in my 30s and through my drinking career, as I'll call it, there was a sabbatical. I just had a sabbatical from life. And now I just find so much joy in the smallest of things. It's not perfect, but it's perfect enough. And there's the ability to know that I will actually cope even with the shittiest of things, and not having being chained to a bottle, the dependency for that thing to get you through life, being free from that is just mind-blowing when it's been, you know, part of how you cope your whole life. Lows, look, the only low, and as I said, it's not, there's positive from it, is probably there's a lot of post-traumatic guilt or stress from that level of addiction. I don't like who I was. I wasn't me. You know, I have to remind myself often, and it's, you know, I've been sober for 9 years now. I have to remind myself that that was you and your addiction. That's not you. That was, you know, that was the alcohol. But, you know, guilt around missing some time with my kids, potential situations I could have got myself into that I did get myself into, the lying. So there's a lot of guilt. I've done a lot of work on that though. And I continue to.
You've done the work.
Yeah, I've done a lot of work. It's going to be ongoing for the rest of my life, because every now and then something will trigger a memory and I'll go, who were you? How did you do that? Because it's such a stark contrast from where I am now. I lost my ability to speak. So even my vocabulary went threefold. Again, like I look at handwriting, things that I wrote when I was drinking, and it was like a 2-year-old's writing. I couldn't control my hands. Wow. So, you know, these small things are huge things. Having a conversation with someone, and I've always been, you know, a relatively articulate person until I drank. And then I'm trying to string a freaking sentence together. So I don't know. There's so many positives. I can't tell you any others, because even those lows that I've just spoken about with the guilt, they're all lessons, because they are positive in the fact that they've driven me now to become very purposeful in my life and make sure that other people know that there is hope, that you don't have to live like that. Yeah.
Oh, and you only have to look at Instagram to have hope. Juzzy.
Yeah, but it's, you know it's
posts are beautiful.
Thank you. And it's, you know, it's not, you know, and it's not, you know, people go, oh, I do get a lot of press on, you know, your physical transformation. That's a byproduct. You know what? Yeah. That was never my main focus. I was always a very vain, I'm always going to be like that. I was in the music industry for a long time. I did modeling and stuff when I was younger. Then I just became, I didn't give a shit about myself. So now I'm like, okay, it's become a byproduct. And I love that part of what I do. But it's the message that's the most important
it's
thing.
The words that you put
It's not, you don't have to look like me, be like me. If you've always wanted to be a horticulturist and you didn't do it because you've been drinking, when you stop drinking, you can do whatever the hell you want. And that's my point, is put down the glass, pick up your mojo, whatever your mojo is for you.
Oh, another quote of the
Hallelujah. I really love what you said there, and I'll just recap a little bit. You said about feeling joy, and I thought about that, and you feel joy in the small things, and I know Breeza, you can relate as well. When you walk out in nature and just sucking in the vibrancy of life or a sunrise and just really natural things gives you the biggest kick, just the smallest things. Even I was on a tram the other day and I reached out to an elderly gentleman to help him sort of walk through the tram, and he grabbed my hand, and just at those little things, you know, giving you a seat, and that stuff gives you joy. If I was sitting there drinking, I would be like, I don't know, probably have my head in the phone or just mouthing off, or, you know, missing these little opportunities. I love that. And I really love how you spoke about your life being purposeful and with hope. I'm like, oh, you've given us so many nuggets today.
Yeah. But there's small things, like, you know, you think about, okay, there's large things that have clearly made massive differences in my life, and, you know, what I've been able to do, what I've been able to achieve, you know, where I'm at now. But I remember the first time when I had completely got sober, when my nan, God bless her, she lives around the corner, and she called me at like 6:30 at night, and Granddad had a fall, and everyone, my family were overseas and whatever else. And it was the first time I can remember that I was actually not drinking, so I could drive around and actually help her. And I bawled my eyes out on the way there, because I was like, I'm fucking useful to somebody. I can actually, I can get in my car at 6:30 because I'm not already tanked and go and help Nan. Like, there's the small things that you just underestimate. But I remember what you talked about, just the nature. I remember the first time I travelled sober. And I remember going back to Europe for the first time, which Europe's my big thing, but I love travel. And I remember my first trip back to Europe sober. And I think I cried the whole trip because I'm like, and my kids kept saying to me, "Can you not say, oh my God, Ma?" I kept saying, "Look at that, look at that, look at that." And they're like, "We see it, we see it." And I go, "But you don't understand. I don't think I've seen it. I've been here 3 times and I haven't seen it."
Oh, incredible.
Love that. I love that.
Being reborn. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, incredible.
Travel definitely has a different spin on it when you're sober. I think you just want to do everything as much as you can rather than sitting there drinking piss. You just want to go and explore and take it all in.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your book, which I love the title. The title is just nailed it. Sobriety Delivered, Everything Alcohol Promised. I mean, what a cracking title. Couldn't be truer. It's obviously got lots of tips in there for readers, but for people who are listening today that want to improve their relationship with booze or want to completely eliminate it, what would you say to our listeners?
I think the first thing is you actually have to identify what your true relationship with alcohol is, and that's about being really honest with yourself. And that's not easy to do. That's quite difficult. But depending on your level of dependency, once again, if it's if it's impacting you just functioning, then clearly it is. But you have to surrender. That's a bit of an AA thing, and I didn't do AA, but I wholly believe that is you have to admit where you're at with alcohol to begin with, and then speak that truth to somebody. And if you're at a level of dependency that it requires medical intervention, I really do think that it's your doctor. Go to your doctor. And some people don't necessarily believe that they've got a physical dependency, but they stop drinking and they've got the afternoon anxieties and shakes and all sorts of things. So, somewhere in there potentially might need medication. Admit where you're at, seek medical assistance. Straight away, my suggestion, I will say it, is start exercising and use it even to begin with as a distraction. It doesn't have to be that you're not there to become the fittest, healthiest person to begin with. I honestly think to begin with, it's a healthy distraction. I know I overtrained in the beginning, but it was way better than, if I put my runners on 3 times and I was doing 3 walks, I was not drinking. And that's really, really, really important. And then I truly believe we need to have a network of other people that know how you feel and are doing the same thing. It's support. So, thankfully, when I first got sober, there wasn't anyone near the social media presence. And there now is, and you need to reach out and find other people that are doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, I mean, they're so basic and they're probably, what everyone would, but there's no magic formula. It is just a formula that you have to work, but you have to be honest with yourself. And I definitely will throw in there when a lot of these challenges that people are doing now, 30 days, 90 days or whatever have you, they're not bad. I don't disagree with them at all, because I really do think that they actually allow you to really think, to understand how dependent you are on alcohol. But don't think this is what so many people do to begin with, is don't think, what am I going to do in 1 year's time when I've got this wedding that I've got to go to, that, this, that, and the other. Just let it happen. Just think about today, here and now, and not drinking one day at a time.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. And I love how you said, being really honest about your relationship with alcohol. We recorded yesterday and I said to Breeza, it's the first time that I have felt comfortable with what my drinking looked like. And I've been on and off it for 10 years, like had bouts of sobriety through that time. And we've never been big on labels, have we? But for me to be comfortable to say I misused alcohol, I sort of put myself in that grey area situation, which I probably did, bingey, but I misused alcohol 100%. And that's been hard to admit. And we've been doing the podcast, we're up to 81 episodes now. And it's taken me that long to go, I absolutely can put my hand up and comfortably say I misused alcohol.
Yeah.
As a,
and that's okay. That was part of your development. You're one of the lucky ones that actually did the work to not drink and then recognize where you're at with it. But we don't like labels, and that's half the problem. Is when we say the word alcoholic, we just we visualize brown paper bag in the park, homeless, and it's just. That's not the case. No. It's an alcoholic is somebody who has a poor relationship with alcohol. How broad is that?
Yeah.
That's misuse, whatever else. We're not using alcohol for the right reasons.
Yeah, and it's impeding on your life.
Correct.
Yeah. It's not serving you. Yeah.
I don't think it serves many people. I'm pretty damn honest about that. I don't say everyone should be a non-drinker, but you tell me 3 positive things that alcohol does for you. Most people can't.
Correct. Yeah, never ends well.
Radio silence.
Oh, Juzzy, this has been so good.
No, this has been great. Really enjoyed it.
So good. So we're just going to wrap it up with the last couple of segments.
Yep.
A little bit of rapid fire.
Okay.
All
right, hang on. Let me have one more sip of my coffee so that I've got some caffeine in me.
Buckle up.
Buckle up. All right, you're on the Gold Coast, so we go into Burleigh Pav or Cavill Ave?
Burleigh Pav.
Yeah.
Nice.
You're in the fitness industry, so what are we doing, mountain climbers or burpees?
Mountain climbers.
Tick. Everyone hates burpees.
Are you getting your rig out of the beach or the river?
Am I getting, what was that?
Oh, you rig out. You rig.
At the beach or the river? The beach.
Yeah. The beach. Yeah, babe. Beach, babe. Mm-hmm. Now, you did gloss over that you were hanging out with Kylie Minogue. We'd like to unpack that a little bit more. But if you were in a carpool karaoke situation with Kylie up the front, who else is in your car? Who else is in your car or your van, in our minivan, besides me, Breezer, and Kylie Minogue? And what song are you listening to?
Oh, God. He's not here anymore, but George Michael is probably, and we're probably singing Last Christmas.
Oh, God.
I'm such a soppy old cheese ball. But yeah, something like that. Or Father Figure, or I Want Your Sex, maybe. We're on a good day. We're singing.
I'm so there.
We're so fan.
All bangers.
I miss him.
Oh, he's great. Would you have anyone else?
In my car with me?
Yeah.
Maybe my dad. My dad.
Dad's
been sober. Yep, he's been sober 36 years, and he's got 7 motorbikes and still rides them at 200 kilometres an hour. And if you see what he looks like after that many years of not drinking, he's 73, and that's what he's blown away. So he's definitely a huge part of my inspiration. So I'd tag him along because I know he'd have fun with that.
I love that. What's his name?
Don.
Good
Donnie.
on you, Don. Big Don. Don is good.
Exactly.
But clearly, you've got your genetics from Don because, I mean, you're very aesthetically pleasing, Juzzy.
Yeah. 100%.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. That ticks off the rapid fire. Meso, just before we wrap up the potty and jump into our last few segments, let's talk about our 2 new sponsors for season 3, starting off with Cinch Skin. I'm a massive fan. You're a massive fan. I've been using their Spray and Glow product. They're a skincare range. For the last 6 or so years I've been using it. I know you're all over their products too, aren't you, Meso?
I am. I'm showcasing them right now.
And the thing about the Cinch Skin is that it's skincare simplified. Makes it nice and easy.
Yep. Uncomplicated, multi-benefit skincare routine packed with clinically proven ingredients for maximum results, and it's cruelty-free.
We love it. And they have generously given our listeners a whopping 25% off, I should say. The discount code is BFB25. And where do they shop, Meso?
Yes, at www.cinchskin.com. Yep, you'll get amongst it. We love you, Cinch. Thanks for coming on board.
And we've also got
Gut Performance, which you use every single day. It's a prebiotic, and they've given us a discount code as well. It's BFB15 when you go to www.gutperformance.com. I'll just quickly I'll just roll over and tell you the benefits. So peak performance when you're using gut performance can help with regularity, bloating, energy, skin, mood, immune system, digestion, and absorption of nutrients and inflammation levels. I've been using it, love it every single day, will not go a day without it. So thank you, Gut Performance. We love you.
Thank you.
Fucking with the pH, so we can give it F with the call or text. Phone, fucking with the pH.
I would have done a lot of that to my ex-husband at the time. When you're feeling the feels and you just want to have a go. Oh, it was definitely warranted. Definitely warranted. Just didn't create anything positive the next day. I know I shot off a few messages, and probably it's always men, isn't it? It was I definitely shot off some messages to some ex-boyfriends, kind of reaching out. Hey, kind of miss you, sort of stuff, and then waking up and going, oh God, no.
Yep, can relate.
Yeah,
hard relate.
The alcohol just exacerbates those emotional feels, doesn't it?
Yeah,
big time, big time. Great. So then we're on to recommendation of the week. Anything that's brought you joy this last week that you'd love to recommend for our listeners?
It's time for the recommendation of the week.
I went on a 25K bike ride this week. So, and it's not, I do a lot of exercise but I spend a lot of time in the gym. I do a lot of weight training, and I have a bike that I haven't used in a really long time. Took it to Brisbane to a friend's place and did a 25K ride. And when I ride a push bike, no joke, I actually can I'm transported back to when I was like 13, 14, 15, riding the streets of the Gold Coast, just carefree kind of to an extent, but I was outdoors in nature and seeing things as I'm going. It was a different type of thing. It's like, jump on a bike. You don't have to do 100K around the bay in a day, but jump on a bike and just have a bit of a cruise.
I love that.
Yeah, great reco. I've got a bike, so I'm going to dust the cobwebs off it and
love
pull it out this weekend.
Yeah.
Great reco.
Great reco.
So, Dudley, where can we find you? And is there anything else you wanted to add and what's on for you next?
So, clearly I've got my socials, Instagram, Facebook, my website. You probably pulled them up.
I'll pop them in the show notes.
Yeah. The only so what next for me? A couple of big things. My book is actually has been self-published, but I have got a publishing contract, and we're going to Austin McCauley in London, releasing it in June. So I have a much broader reach with that than what I've got now. Big thing for me is I actually am holding a sober retreat in July in Bali.
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, and it's basically my foundation of wellness. It's fitness, nutrition, health. It's not, it's not rehab. You're coming if you've decided alcohol is no longer, a significant part of your life and you want to refine some of those tools. Mm-hmm. So in Bali, I've teamed up with Journey Retreats. We've got an unbelievable itinerary for 5 days over there in July. So jump on my Instagram jump on there. It's going to be awesome. And then I'll be going to the UK hopefully September, October to do a bit of a press tour over there with the book and all that type of thing, and tack on a little bit of a holiday because I turned 50 a couple of weeks ago and I haven't really done anything yet. It's been a bit of a weird personal time for me. So I'm going to
celebrate.
Get my Italian.
You've been 40?
No, she's turned 50. I know, right?
I just turned 50. There was a bit of vomit in my mouth when I said that. I talk about it all the time and I know there's a lot of positives, but I actually am still not quite dealing with it properly.
Well, I think
it's just a number, really apparently. Well. Yeah, we will continue to try and defy the age. I'm drawing on my dad's Polish German, so I'm drawing on my European heritage, going, please keep my grandmother looked amazing. I'm like, just can I have those genetics? Keep going, please.
It's working for you.
Yeah,
working for you.
Yeah. Wow, some big things happening.
Huge things. What exciting
Huge
year.
things. Dry July will be huge too. I'm also a regular guest panelist on a Channel 9 TV show called Helping Hands. And it's all community-based stuff, people who are doing things in the community. And then they have it's a bit they have guest panelists, and I'm one of those that discusses topics, relevant topics afterwards. So I've done 4 episodes of that, 2 have aired, and I'll go back down later in the year and do some more. So lots of things. Hopefully more and more.
Yeah, absolutely.
The more noise I can make, the better.
Yeah.
And you're definitely making noise, because we obviously saw you on Insta, but I've seen you on, is it Sunrise? You've been on one of the morning shows.
Yeah, Sunrise and
you pop up on that.
What was the other one on Channel 10? Goodness gracious, I've just forgotten. Yeah, I'm doing it. Yeah, no, that's awful, isn't it?
You're definitely making noise, because you popped up on our radar quite a while ago. So
thank you.
You're getting the message out there to the right people.
Absolute powerhouse. And we're just so wrapped and so grateful that you've spent the time with us today. You've been so generous with your time and sharing your stories. You've gone deep, and it's hard. But as we always say, your vulnerability will be helping so many. So thank you, Justine.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. You guys have been a treat. Awesome.
Oh, thank
back
you.
at you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We can't wait to follow the rest of your journey. Can't wait to see you up in lights.
Thank you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We'll see what we can pull.
Yeah,
Thanks,
amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay. Yeah. Bye.
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 This podcast is proudly produced by our audio engineer, music extraordinaire, Eric Ladd.
We love you, Eric.